Hello everyone, welcome back to the session on your IoT. So this particular session, we will be starting a first unit related to your IoT, and this is nothing but your fourth unit, which actually comprises of two different things here. Basically, this unit 4, whatever we have, it is actually classified into two different types. Okay, so or we can say it is classified into two different parts. So in the first part, we will be discussing about something called as physical devices and endpoints. That is the topic name. Okay, so the main topic name of your first part. This is part one. And same way we have part two here. In the part two, we will be discussing about cloud offerings. In the sense, in the first part, we will be discussing about what are the physical devices that are required in order to gather the information. We are going to discuss about the different physical devices that we require in order to gather the information on which we need to perform analysis. And whatever the data that we are gathering here, that we will be storing into our storage devices. That is nothing but cloud-based storage devices. Cloud-based storage devices. Not only that, even if possible, we may try to communicate whatever the information is getting gathered using this particular physical devices. We may be communicating with other devices that are connected to this particular physical devices. So this is what we are going to see in this particular scenario. Apart from that, okay, I hope it's clear till here. So this is the first part what we have here, and this is the second part. So basically in this particular session, I will try to cover some of the basic parts of your physical devices and endpoints. Okay. So what we do have exactly here, so here coming to this particular part, whatever you're seeing here, so this particular thing actually consists of three basic things here. Let me take a PowerPoint from here. Yeah. So it actually consists of only very small topic, actually small part it is having. The first thing what we are going to discuss about here is something called basic building blocks of an IoT devices. Followed with that, we have something called explanatory devices, Raspberry Pi. So basically, this entire unit, or you can say that this particular subject, which we basically call it as IoT, will be working on using Raspberry Pi. We're going to use particular. Okay, so whatever the information we want, so what are the sensors or whatever the sensors we require, or the actuators, all these will be connected to this particular device, and based on that performance will be performed. So in this particular session we will be actually discussing about this particular Raspberry Pi. So what exactly that board consists of. Along with the board, we will be discussing about input output pins that are related to a particular board. Okay, so we'll be discussing in brief, so that we can get a clear idea about this particular board, how we can use it, what are the different pins we have with respect to this particular board, and how what are the other devices and other components that are integrated to this particular board that we are going to discuss in this particular scenario. And then we have something called Raspberry Pi interfaces. That is nothing but the different interfaces that are required in order to means other devices we need to I mean the different devices, something called sensors and actuators. These need to be connected to this particular board. So how these sensors and actuators can be connected to this? How the board is providing an interface so that these devices can communicate with this board and send the data to this particular board, that we are going to see in this particular scenario. And finally, we will be coming to our programming Raspberry Pi with Python. So as I told in the beginning that in the entire unit, we are going to use Python as a programming language because it's very easy, very compatible, and very easily we can write the program. So we are going to use Python programming language here. So using Python, we will be programming Raspberry Pi. So simple, we'll take an example of LED, simple blinking the LED light. So I will show you how exactly it is done. I will provide you the program also, it's very easy. And then we'll discuss about the other IoT devices what we have similar to your Raspberry Pi. So this is not the only one we have. I think you people might be familiar with other devices like we have Arduino Uno, right? And again we have Texas Instrument. They have their own board in order to perform operations. So basically, different companies are coming up with different devices. So, but basically, since Raspberry Pi, why we are actually focusing on Raspberry Pi in this particular subject or unit is it is very cheap. Okay, we can easily buy it around 300 or 400 rupees or something like that you can get, or maybe in 100,000 rupees, not more than that. So it's very cheap and it is the size of a what we call a credit card. So it becomes very easy to access it and perform operations using this particular device. And moreover, whatever the software required in order to execute the program, that is open source. So we can download anywhere and we can Arduino similarly no, Raspberry Pi is much more cheaper when compared to ordinary Unipart. Okay, so that's the reason this particular unit or this particular subject is focusing on mainly Raspberry Pi rather than the other boards whatever we are having. So basically, first discuss about, let's recall the previous session. What do you mean by Internet of Things, where device? Okay, what do you mean by an IoT device? So basically, we said that Internet of Things, the things is most important here. What do you mean? The thing here is nothing but this is an object, or we can say it is a device, and they have unique identifier. Every device will have one ID. He means to say unique identifier is nothing but ID, and using that ID, this particular device can either send or receive the data. It can either send or receive the data. Now, how this particular thing can receive, either send or receive the data, that depends. Means either it can transmit the data within to the nearby surroundings, or it may be transmitting the data to the cloud. Okay, so nearby devices, whatever they are having to this particular device, either it may try to transmit the data to those particular devices, or it may try to, whatever the data it is gathering, it will be storing that information into the cloud. Okay, so based on this, what happens? We can communicate. Means if we are transmitting, means storing the information within the cloud, we can perform something called analysis of the data. And based on that, we can perform different operations with respect to that particular data. Means we may try to predict, like for example, I want to determine the temperature, today's temperature by the next year, the same day, the same time, what will be the temperature? Well, what I have to do is I simply have to collect some 2 to 3 years of data by deploying the sensors. So sensors are nothing but what kind of sensors we require here. Something we will be taking as a temperature sensor, and then we will be taking of something called as humidity. Okay, so we will take this particular. So basically for this we have a DHT22 sensor that we will take and will 2 to 3 years. And based on the data, whatever we have gathered here, we will can perform some analysis using Hadoop. Analysis using Hadoop. And whatever the performance we are doing, finally we can analyze that so and so date. Okay, what will be the weather condition? So what will be the weather condition on a particular day with time and on. So this is the way how we exactly perform predictions. Okay, so but basically if you see here, since I told you about Hadoop means here we can be using some machine learning concepts or data science concepts and all. But in order to apply that, we require the main important thing what we require is data. And that data how we can gather is nothing but using IoT devices. So basically IoT plays a very important role. So whether you want to work on machine learning or you want to work on cloud computing, okay, or you want to learn on data science, whatever the topic you take up, the basic thing, the groundwork, the basic or the groundwork will be done. Means the data gathering work will be done by this particular IoT. So people should know about that, that whenever we are performing, we will be using it. So basically, now these particular devices, as I told you, will have a unique identity, and these particular devices will be transmitting the data to other devices, or it may be transmitting to cloud. But how it is able to transmit to other devices and cloud is basically, you should know that that can be done only with the help of something we call it as Internet of Things. Without Internet, it's not possible to transmit the data. So using Internet only, we can transmit the information. So this is going to play a very vital role in order to transmit the data. Okay, so based on this, let's take an example. So what are the different examples with respect to the IoT devices we do have? The first one, if we talk about, we have something called home automation device. This already we discussed in unit 1 as well as unit 2 also to a certain extent we have seen. Home automation is nothing but you people might be having something called washing machines, air conditioning. So you will be trying to control them using your mobile phone. Okay, your mobile phone. Well, the correct terminology, what I can call it here is something called a smartphone. So using a smartphone, you can try to control the washing machine, air conditioning, your refrigerator, your TV and all. Okay, that is what comes under your home automation devices. And after that, we have something called industrial machines. Okay, so here this machines may even in the industry, we might be want to know the age or the working condition. So the working condition of a machine. So for that, we actually deploy some sensors and they will be continuously monitoring the health condition of that particular device and it will be transmitting the information to the server. And based on that, analysis will be performed and it will try to determine whether it is perfect or not. And if there are any problems within that, they can try to replace it. Next, we have something called, we basically know about something called a car here, which actually transmits the information. Okay, so the car, so within the car, you people might have seen that we have GPS locations nowadays. So we can easily track that where this particular car is right now, at which particular position, at which particular street, or where exactly it is going, whether it is stable. All that information can be easily with the help of this GPS. So that GPS is actually transmitting the location information to the cloud. So based on that, we can predict it. Then we have something called as wireless enabled wearable devices. Well, this is nothing but is talking about your smart bands. You have smart bands, right? And then nowadays we are getting something called oximeters for determining the oxygen level. Same way for BP, we have some machines. Okay, so these are all wireless. So whatever the data that is gathered using the smartphone, like the number of steps you're walking, how much you're working out, your sleep monitoring, and something called heart monitoring. Okay, nowadays it is even a temperature monitoring. It will tell you the temperature if it is more than 98 degrees or something like that. Immediately it will alert you. So all these are actually related to your wireless. So you can see that the smart bands, whatever you people might be wearing on your wrist, that is doesn't have any kind of LAN cables or something like that, right? But it is gathering the information and using some wireless technology, something called as Bluetooth. It is transmitting the data to your mobile phone device, and from the mobile phone that will be transmitted to your cloud. So this is the way how. So that is also one type of Internet of Thing. Even your smart band comes under a thing, which is okay. So and use what is the main purpose of that? Monitoring your body. Okay, how it is working, how it is performing, whatever is there any problems with respect to the temperature, heart, okay, sleep is going to information. So these are the different platforms where we might be using Internet of Things, okay, very easily, very efficiently nowadays. Okay, so that all comes under into this particular introduction part. Now let's talk about the basic building blocks of an IoT devices, what we generally have. So well, actually, your IoT device, if we talk about it, is actually consists of number of modules. Okay, everything is based upon modules, and these modules will have some set of attributes. Okay, what kind of attributes it is going to have is something we call it as functional attributes. And in that we are going to discuss the first one is something called as sensing. So what do you mean the sensing here? Okay, so sensing is something but see we are going to use some different type of sensors. Okay, so these sensors, what exactly? Actually, our IoT device, okay, we will have on board some sensors. Some sensors will be present on the onboard itself. For example, we are talking about Raspberry Pi, right? So this particular Raspberry Pi will consist of some sensors. Apart from that, the other sensors might be you can attach to this particular device. Okay, we can attach the other sensors. Well, all sensors will be placed. So we can attach these particular sensors to this device. And when we are attaching those particular sensor to the device, it can perform the operation as it is done. So here various type of sensors are there which actually performs operation. Yeah, we do have various different type of sensors here. The best what we know about is basically we are talking about from the beginning is temperature, humidity. So this is basically used for weather monitoring. So it is used for weather monitoring system. Now, apart from that, we also have other something like air pressure determination. Okay. Next, we can also have other like alarms and all. So that also comes under sensors only. Basically, but these are the one which we generally focus on. So these sensors, what they do is they actually gather the information. They are gather information. So they basically gather information in real time. And that information they are actually transmitting either to the cloud or to the nearby devices. Okay. So based on that, they are actually performing the operation. So if you see here, as I told you, the sensors can be either on board, okay, or they may be attached to the different devices. And what is the main purpose of this particular sensors? We need to gather the information in real time. What kind of information? That may be related to temperature, humidity, light intensity, etc. All these comes under that. And the next part, what we have is actuation. What do you mean by basically it is called as actuators? Well, actually, it is something, actuators are nothing but these are the ones which are actually connected to the device. Your Raspberry Pi device, this will be connected and they perform physical operation. Okay, physical operation. Let me give you an example. Let us take an air conditioner. Air conditioner, what you people are doing is, you people are from using your smartphone. What you're doing, you are turning on, you are just turning on the AC. So what will happen internally, the AC will be turned on. Automatically the AC will be, so automatically what happens, the AC will turn on. How it is happening here? The lids will automatically turn on. Okay, whatever the lids we have, and automatically the fresh air will start coming out. But how it is coming? Simply you're clicking on your smartphone that AC turn on, automatically it is which is turning on because movements. Physical operation, or we call it as movements. Still more example I can see, for example, whenever you're entering in your room, you want the switches should be automatically turned on. So before entering, you'll open a smartphone and you click on turn on the light. So automatically the light turn on. So there we use something called as a relay switch. A relay switch is the one which actually turns on or off the light. So whenever you click on your smartphone, which is having an internet connection connected to this particular relay switch, when you click on, automatically this relay switch will turn on the light. Whenever you're turning it off, the relay switch will turn off that particular light. Okay, so this is the one. So all the physical mediums what we have, which perform some operation like kinetic movement, kinetic energy or potential energy movements, whatever it is performing, that comes under into this particular actuators. Okay, so we have several different types of actuators, which only few we are going to see here. So basically, you have a clear idea about that actuators. Actuators are nothing but the one which will perform some physical operations on the device. Based on that, your systems will be working on. That we call it as actuators. So as I told you, I gave you an example, right? Relay switch. So if you want to turn on or off a particular light within a room, you can do that with the help of this actuator called as relay switch. And the next module, what we have, the functional attributes, what we have is communication. Obviously, whatever the data that is gathered using this particular physical sensors and sensors, that has to be transmitted. Okay, where do we have to transmit? Either we can transmit to the nearby devices which are connected if they require that information, or we can transmit the info data to the cloud. Okay, so we will be storing the information in the cloud, and based on our application, we will be working on that particular data whichever is gathered. So here the information whatever is there gathered by the sensors, that need to be transmitted to cloud servers or storages, and we can even, this particular sensors can receive the data from this particular cloud. Okay, not only cloud, other devices, cloud or devices which are connected nearby to it particular thing. Okay, so based upon the applications whatever we are working, that can easily try to get the information. And the last part, the answers the information in this different operations, and that operation is what is calling it as analysis. We can do it using Hadoop, or you can use some cloud computing concept. You can use some big data analytics, or you can use data science or machine learning concepts in order to perform analysis. And based on the analysis, you can try to predict some predictions. You can make some predictions with respect to the application, whatever you people are working on, and that's what he's saying in this. So used for making the sensing and collecting data and performing operations. So these are the basic modules what we have with your IoT devices. The first thing you should be familiar with, sensing. So different type of sensors will be attached to the onboard device, or it may be attached separately. And the main purpose of the sensors is collecting the data and all. Then we have something called as acquisition. So if you talk about the acquisitions here, acquisition. So here actuators are mainly nothing but the one which performs the physical entity of that particular devices. The best example for that is relay switches. Then we have something called as communication. So if you talk about communication here, this is responsible for sending data to the cloud. And from the cloud, it will try to access, even it can try to access the information. Then we have something called as analysis and processing here. So analysis and processing you might understood now. Simple thing, what you have to remember here, if I ask you the diagrammatic way, if you ask, tell you what exactly we are doing here is nothing but, so here we are deploying some sensors. So we have some sensors within the environment. Okay, these are the sensors. These sensors will read the data. So these sensors are going to read the data from environment. And that data, these people will be either sending to the other nearby devices, whatever are there, or it may be trying to transmit the data to the cloud. So that's what I basically done. So this is the cloud where the data is actually stored. Okay, data will be stored. Here, sensing, acquisition, communication, and analysis. Now let's talk about the block diagram of your IoT here. So the block diagram, if we talk about, it's very easy here. You can see here we have different components that are connected together to internet, and all these components are required in order to function properly. Okay, so what are the different components we require here? If we talk about, first thing we'll talk about here something called as connectivity. So what do you mean by connectivity? So definitely we want sometimes the other devices, means the sensors, to be connected to your Raspberry Pi. Well, this is a basic block diagram for your Raspberry Pi or general. Since we are talking about Raspberry Pi, this is a general block diagram. Even the same is used for your Arduino Uno, as well as other devices, whatever we have with respect to your IoT. So the first thing, if you talk about connectivity here, we have two things. We have something called as USB port, and another one is RJ45 or Ethernet. Okay, what do you mean by RJ45 is nothing but we basically call it as registered jack. Okay, we call it as registered jack 45. This is the name given for the Ethernet. So whenever you're using a blue color wire, whatever you're seeing in your labs, so that wire, if you're connecting to the Raspberry Pi, that will be working using this particular registered jack 45. Okay, and if you want, you can directly use USB cable also in order to establish your connection. Like for example, you might be using Wi-Fi adapters, right? So Wi-Fi enabled adapters, if you wanted to use it, you can use the USB host in order to connect to the internet. And then if we talk about processors, obviously the GPU, we have CPU processor here, so central processing unit, and this is the one which will be performing operations based upon the instructions given or the algorithms, whatever we have written. So basically we know that. Okay, and similarly we have something called as graphics here. So we have, apart from CPU, central processing unit, we have GPU, graphical processing unit. Now this unit is mainly used for any kind of images and all other activities basically used. And similarly, if you want to connect your Raspberry Pi to for audio and video related information, we have some different components related to this. These are the interfaces what we can use: HDMI, 3.5 mm audio jack, and RCA video. If I talk about RCA, this is nothing but it is something we call it as Radio Corporation of America. Well, actually, this is the standard video standard that has been interface provided by the American people. So that's why we basically use it. This is worldwide, internationally accepted one. So that's the reason we have RCA. So that is Radio Corporation of America Video. So we can, based upon, if any of the video is supporting this particular protocol, then based on that, we can directly connect to this video and we can see it. Same way, it provides a 3.5 mm audio jack here. So using the jack, you people, I think you people know about a jack. Your mobile phone usually have a jack na, to pin your earphones. So that is what it means to say. So it is size is 3.5 mm. And what about HDMI? HDMI is nothing but here. I think you people know the full definition of that. That is, this is nothing but high definition multimedia interface. Okay, so here HDMI is nothing but high definition multimedia interface. So whenever you wanted to use high resolution images or videos or something like that, you people can directly connect to this particular HDMI cable and you can start operating on that. Apart from that, it has other device. The block diagram consists of. So this is a board. Whatever the board we are using, Raspberry Pi board, that particular board consists of all these components. Remember this, okay? So here the next part what we have is memory interface. So definitely memory is required. We are talking about. So we have RAM and ROM within that. So here we are going to use NAND and NOR gates. So these gates are used in order to provide interfaces and all with respect to your memory. And what kind of RAM we are going to use here is either we can use DDR1, DDR2 or DDR3. So basically if I ask you what do you mean by DDR1? Okay, what do you mean by this DDR is nothing but double data rate. Double data rate. Okay, and it has versions 1, 2, 3, and 4. Nowadays, you might be seeing whenever you buy a laptop DDR4. So double data rate version 4 means it is much more advanced when compared to your DDR1, DDR2, DDR3. My laptop actually consists of DDR3. Okay, so nowadays, whatever the new generation laptops are coming, that actually focus on DDR4. Then if we talk about the storage interfaces, we need to store the information. So we can store either using SD cards or we can use MMC cards or SDIO cards. So what do you mean by secure? We usually call it card SD card. So what do you mean the SD here is nothing but secure digital card. Okay, the one which is very secure. That is what he's saying. And what about MMC? Anyone have any idea related to that? This is what we basically call it as multimedia card. Multimedia card. MMC is nothing but it's a multimedia card. And if you talk about STIO, what do you mean by STIO? Nothing but it is a secure digital input by output. Okay, secure digital I by O, input by output. This is nothing but SD. This SD is nothing but similar to the secure digital. IO is nothing but input by output. So you people can use any of these particular devices, and if you have an SD card, use this particular slot. But if you have a multimedia card, you can use this particular MMC card. And if you're having something IBO related SD secure digital card, then you can access this particular slot, and then you can upload the videos or whatever the information you want to do it. Apart from that, we have interfaces. Interfaces with respect to means other devices we need to provide interface, and these are the slots which are actually used for interfacing purposes. And if you talk about UART, what do you mean by UART is nothing but universal asynchronous receiver by transceiver, receiver by transmitter. Okay, so this is something we call it as universal asynchronous receiver by transmitter. And what about SPI here is nothing but this is what we basically call it as serial peripheral interface. What do you mean by serial peripheral interface is nothing but peripheral devices, whatever we have, which transmit the data serially. That type of devices you can connect to this particular slot. And after that we have I2C. This is nothing but inter-integrated circuit. Inter-integrated circuit. What is the main purpose for this is for transmitting the information. So this is with respect to the circuits, anything you want to connect using it. So internally that we can use this inter-integrated circuit. The finally last but not the least CAN. This is for networking purpose. We call it as controller area network. So if you look at here, this controller area network means within an area, if you want to transmit any information, you can connect a device to this, and using that particular medium, you can try to transmit the information to the other devices. So that's why we call this as a controller area network. You can so I think if people are very much familiar now, the block diagram is very easy. So all these components are required together in order to make that particular device a working condition. Okay, the first one, what we have something here, something called as connectivity, then we have processor, then we have graphics, then we have audio and video, followed with that we have interfaces, then we have storage or interfaces, then memory interface. So all this will have different peripheral components here, these one, and these will perform the operations as per the requirements. So for storage will have three, SC, MMC and SDIO. Memory will have. Also, I think if people are have a brief look over this particular block diagram. This is very, very important for with respect to your exam point of view, and you should know the basics of your particular IoT Raspberry Pi device. So these are the one which you should have been familiar with. Okay. Now coming to the Raspberry Pi now, why we exactly we are going to focus. So now we will enter into the device part. Okay, Raspberry Pi, how it is going to work. So if you talk about this particular Raspberry Pi, why we are using this particular Raspberry Pi is nothing but it is a very low cost. If you talk about this, the main purpose is it's a low cost mini computer, what we have. And if you talk about the size of that particular device, it is the size of a credit card. Now you can understand, okay? So very small, very size. Credit card, I mean, you might have seen your credit or debit card. That is the size of your this particular Raspberry Pi. Okay, it's a mini computer which is having a very low cost. And what type of operating system? Since it is a system we are going to use, it definitely supports operating system. So what kind of operating system is? It actually supports all the versions of your Linux OS, all different flavors of your Linux. So what are the different flavors we have for Linux? If you come across, we have something called Ubuntu, we have Fedora, we have Unix. Apart from that, do we have any other? Linux, Unix, Fedora, even well, these are some which I know. So all these flavors are actually supportable by your Raspberry Pi. Okay, and it can perform all the tasks the same way your system can do it. Your computer means either your laptop or your whatever you're having, your personal desktop computer, whatever is having, whatever it performs the same way this particular thing also perform the operation. And device to provide interface. Okay, that is 35 degrees. If the temperature is above 35 degrees, the what we call the AC should turn on. So automatically, whenever the temperature exceeds 35 degrees, the actuators will be activated. By whom? Based upon the readings of this particular sensor. So how this interface is provided between the sensor and actuator is done by this particular Raspberry Pi. Even the general purpose IBA pins can also be used. We have different IBA pins. We'll have flash over it. Okay. Then we have something called Raspberry Pi line. Okay, he is talking about the operating system language. What language we are going to use within the operating system is basically we are going to use Python, but it's not necessary to use this. We have other programming languages, but Python is the one why we are using it. Is it is much more compatible. Yes, it is much more easier, and we don't have to work more on that particular syntax and all. We can directly implement the logical part. So that's the reason this particular Raspberry Pi we are going to use Python programming, okay, out of the box. Now this is the diagrammatic view of your what we call the Raspberry Pi device. If you can see the size, if you see the size of this particular thing, this particular size is similar to your credit card, right? That's why he's saying. And this actually device, this particular device is integrated. It is integrated with different components. It is integrated with different components. What kind of components that basically is having here is nothing but you can see here. We have something called as LEDs. We will discuss them one by one briefly. Okay, for timing you just have an idea. Okay, in the next session I'll explain them entirely. Whatever you people are seeing here, everything I'll explain. Okay, so if you see a LEDs, we actually basically have 5 LEDs. You can see a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each one is having its own role. I will explain in the coming session. Then we have two USB 2.0 ports. We have actually two ports here and it uses USB, Universal Serial Bus type 2.0. Well, we cannot perform cannot give 3.0. We have only 2.0. And then if you want to connect a Ethernet cable, we have a component to connect it. We have people know from this slide what do you mean by HDMI? That is nothing but high definition multimedia interface. So whenever you want to connect that, you can use this particular device for connection purpose. And this is the one which is used for power. This is something like USB cable. USB power cable that is provided, and using this particular cable, you people can perform the operation. Means you can give power to this particular device. This entire device definitely requires some kind of energy, power, and that power is provided using the USB. We cannot connect any other kind of switches. Only USB power only we can provide to it. Okay, and then we have a SD card slot as we discussed in the previously. So this is a way. This is the location where you people can provide a card slot here. We have a reset button also here. This is RST reset button, and then we have DSI connector. So whenever you want to connect any video, like you want to connect this particular Raspberry Pi to a television, if you want to connect to your TV, and that you can do it using this. And TV I'm talking about, which supports cathode ray. Nowadays we use LEDs and LCDs. Earlier TVs, if you want to connect previous version, we are going to use DSI connectors for displaying purposes. Okay, and then we have something called pins, and these pins are most important here. General purpose input output. GPIO is nothing but general purpose input output. And we have some set of pins here. We'll discuss them elaborately in the coming session. So these are most important. And then we have RCA video. I think you people know about what do you mean by RCA now. Okay, Radio Corporation of America. They have provided some standards. So using that standard, you people can connect the connectors in order to display any kind of video. And finally, for representing audio, we have a audio jack. So this we will be discussing in the coming session. For today's session, I'm going to stop here. In the next session, we will continue with respect to this particular device, whatever the devices we have seen it. And followed with this, we will be discussing about the GPU IO pins, which are most important here. Okay, so just go through this particular video if you want, and please get a clear knowledge with respect to this particular Raspberry Pi, whatever the devices, what we do have. And this is most important. Okay, so this you can go through it. So we have a standard LED lights. We have 5 LED lights. USB 2.0, 2 ports we are having here. Ethernet cable, CSI connector for camera, HDMI, micro USB, SD card slot, DSI connector display. Then we have a GPIO headers, means we have a general input output pin. We'll be having some set of pins here. And then we have RC video for video purposes. Okay, and this is for audio jack, is for representing the audio and all. So thank you. Thank you for watching this particular slide. In the coming session, we'll discuss about something called as the pins related to your thing. Thank you.